Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Strudel with Sharon program. A big thanks to the cafe for the fresh-baked strudel you're enjoying right now, and a thanks to the Wadsworth Older Adults Foundation for sponsoring that. So enjoy. I'm excited to introduce Dante Giancola. He's with the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging, the Director of Government Affairs. And I have to say, the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging, they do so many programs for us. In fact, in partnership with Fair Hill Partners, they're running a DEEP program right now next door, so in the activity room. So we're so thankful. They just did vision screenings for us a couple of weeks ago. And we're thankful for the partnership, all that they do. And thanks, Dante, for coordinating this series of programs. So welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Lori. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So Lori touched on a little bit about what some of the programs that we facilitate and some of the services that we help provide. One of the things that's often not talked about that Western Reserve does, and we are charged with per federal statute, is advocacy. And so advocacy to me, if some of you have heard me talk before, I've got 20 years background on this. Advocacy is cutting above the fray and the noise of everything that you see on TV and hear on the radio. I call it the clickbait, the stuff that gets you outraged. But the real hard work being done by our legislators is often not talked about. And so, yes, I can talk to our legislators about issues such as food insecurity and transportation costs, but it's not nearly as effective. No matter how good I am at conveying this message, it's not nearly as effective as the legislator actually hearing from you and hearing your shared experiences. So I'm very excited about Representative Sharon Ray coming in and speaking with us. Like the previous programs we've had, this is elected officials speaking in their official capacity. I think that sometimes when we watch TV or we see what's going on social media, everyone's upset at each other, everyone's angry. That's 2% of their world. Maybe Representative would say it's 10%, depending on how many people are calling into the office. But most of them, and Representative Ray is no exception, they want to make the right decisions. They want to make the best decisions on best policy. One of the things I always give advice to people when they're meeting with their legislators is be prepared to ask the question when they ask it, because they will, how can I help you? Because they really do want to be informed and make that right decision. So before Representative Ray speaks, I'm going to introduce you, or not introduce you, I'm going to hand it over to Mayor Robin Lava, who will introduce Representative Ray.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is my distinct honor to be able to introduce to you our own representative, Sharon Ray. And I was just sitting here and all of a sudden it dawned on me, I thought, normally I have a note card because I'm giving some information or statistics or something about somebody I'm introducing. And I realized I don't have a note card. Well, I don't need a note card because I've known this young lady for many years. And because, first of all, we grew up together and went to school together, let's say. But particularly I've had the opportunity to work with her hand in hand over the years in government, but also she worked quite a bit in the private sector previously. But many do not remember, or maybe not aware, but she actually had her roots starting right here in Wadsworth as a city council person. And she served us well many years ago, starting in those grassroots. But many do know that she served as our county commissioner for many years. And as mayor, I had the opportunity to work with her as our county commissioner, and she was a true advocate for Wadsworth during that time. And certainly, as she has continued her career with the state representative, I will tell you, you will not find a more truer advocate for Wadsworth than Sharon. I am grateful to have her where she's at because she truly knows Wadsworth and she's a voice for us. And I'll let her share some of the things that she has been the voice for us, but I'll just give you a hint. Some of that has been grant related, but also many other areas. And so we're fortunate to have her. She's a mighty force. Many others do not realize, but she's actually in a leadership position in the state, which is not easy to come by, and also with somebody that She's younger in her career in the State House, and to be able to accomplish that is something to be taken note of. So without any further ado, please welcome Sharon Ray, State Representative for District 66. Come on in.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I would like to point out that, I can put, no. Oh, just this. Oh, that's going to make it a lot easier. Wonderful. Isn't she, I tell you, she looks younger and better now than she did in high school, and I hate her just a little bit for it, because she's so good. As many of you know, I have lived in Wadsworth since I was 6, so I'm pretty much a lifelong resident. I very much love being a Wadsworthian. I'm very proud to be a Grizzly. And I'm so excited, I have to share with you, I will be the Grand Marshal of the parade Tuesday. Parade, yes, I get to light the giant match. I'm so excited. I've participated in this parade off and on, I think mostly on since I was 10 and a majorette. So this is kind of a very exciting time for me, and I hope that you'll watch it at home in the air conditioning, because it is going to be warm. But for the hardier folks, please come down and wave at me. I'm very excited. I say to people a lot of times that I think my career has unwittingly prepared me very well for the legislature. It's not something I ever thought I would do. For most of us women, you know what I mean. I was a divorced single parent most of my life. I couldn't just take off on a Monday night and come back on a Thursday night. There's nobody there to let the cat out or anything else that goes on with it. So it really wasn't on my radar. But serving as a city council person and a county commissioner, as many of you know, I was a bailiff at the court for over 10 years. Probably called a lot of you for jury duty. Hope you're still not mad. I was on the Board of Elections, but it gave me experience in all 3 branches of government, which was so incredibly helpful to see the process all the way through. So when the position came up at the legislature, my predecessor and gentleman I served as county commissioner with for 8 years, Steve Hambley, said to me, Sharon, if you're ever going to do it, you got to do it now. I was really nervous because I thought, I don't know. I was so excited, put my name on the ballot. The voters were very kind, and I was elected and went down there. The whole leadership thing, I did not accede to a position of leadership. In fact, I took a very non-traditional approach. I voted for the guy that lost the speaker race. That normally means you're banished to Siberia, but the guy that won said, you're very old, you have a lot of experience, and please come join the team. And I was honored to do so as we work to try to bring new legislators up and teach them about the process. The one interesting thing I will tell you is I am the first Wadsworthian to represent us in the State House in over 45 years. So more importantly than being the first woman, it was being the first Wadsworthian in a lot of years that I think, thank you. Not that we haven't always loved our representatives, but it does make sure that I've got everybody's back down there, so I'm very excited about that. I have to tell you that now that I've joined the Senior Center, as many of my contemporaries have, now that we qualify, I come down here an awful lot of time and take advantage of the walking track at the Y. Does anybody else do that? I don't see any of my morning walking buddies. Good, because I think it's so important that you stay active, you stay connected in the community, and this is just such a wonderful place to do so. So we're very lucky to have this asset here in the city of Wadsworth. We're seeing a demographic transformation of the population. I'm sure you've seen it. Americans are having fewer children, and the baby boomers in the 50s, the baby boom of the 50s and 60s is yet to be repeated. We anticipate by 2034, older adults will edge out children in population size. Isn't that crazy? And we got to make sure they have enough kids, because I really am planning on taking advantage of my pension, and people need to be putting in so I can take out. It's kind of a platform scheme there. I do want to let you know that in the 24-25 budgets, we made significant investment in senior programs. Senior community services, little over $10 million in 24 and 25. And this is money that's used to help seniors live independently in their own homes and communities as long as possible. I don't relish the thought of where I'll go to after I can no longer stay by myself. So I'd like to stay by myself as long as I can. And I think most people feel the same way. Senior community service funds are distributed to local area agencies on aging, and then they're allocated according to population-based formulas. They can use the funds to target local needs to specific areas. Funds target individuals who are low income, high need, or cognitively impaired and at least 60 years of age. Services include personal care and adult daycare services, as well as home-delivered and congregate meals, transportation, disease prevention and health promotion, home maintenance and chores, decision support systems, minor home modifications, and care coordination services. Does anyone here volunteer with Meals on Wheels? Very good. Does anyone receive Meals on Wheels? Oh, a couple. You know, that seems to be one of the most popular programs that we see in the county for folks. And I know my father and stepmother volunteered all the way up to his death and very, very much enjoyed being able to make connections with people and make sure that they had a hot meal at least once a day. We committed over $4 million in both budget years to Alzheimer's and other dementia respite. If you've ever cared for anyone with Alzheimer's or dementia, you know how emotionally draining and physically draining that can be. And we want to make sure we're always able to give those caregivers a break, because it's an awful, awful lot. We also have our Healthy Aging grants. Now, this was supplemented by the rescue plan funding, so we were able to commit $40 million to that. That was a long-term investment in supports that can be used, again, to try to keep seniors in their home, to also work to improve quality of life, delay entry into Medicaid, preserve personal assets, and promote a healthy, independent, and active lifestyle. Those are the areas that I thought would be of most interest to folks our age, but one of the other ones that's a personal priority for me is we have set a task force to study property taxes. Anybody else seeing the property taxes going crazy? I always wanted to live in a $200,000 house. I didn't realize that if I stayed in my $100,000 house long enough that it would get there that quickly. The increases have been so substantial and so quick. We put together a task force, bipartisan in nature. It's also the House and the Senate, to come back at the end of the year with some recommendations to put into place to try to ease the burden, the property tax burden on our local taxpayers. Now, Medina County is very unique because we have something that no other county in the state of Ohio has. It's the 0.5% school sales tax. When Commissioner Hambley and I served together, we actually put that on the ballot, and it was overwhelmingly improved in Medina County. And what that did was it takes that 0.5% school sales tax money and allocates it all through the county to the different school systems for permanent improvements only. Now, that 0.5% generates over $15 million annually for our schools. That helped alleviate a little bit of the property tax burden. But unfortunately, now with inflation and other factors, you know, we're back up to a bad situation again. So hopefully this task force is going to come back with some innovative recommendations to try to shift that off the property tax payer. That's all really I have, unless anyone has any questions about any of the legislation that I have introduced. Just briefly, a lot of the things I work on are policy in nature. They're very bipartisan in nature. My Adoption Modernization Act, which will not only make the adoption process more efficient and shorter, but also less expensive for our folks, passed the House unanimously. We're just trying to bring it back over from the Senate. I do have a community solar bill. If anyone's familiar with that, it's a priority of mine. We have community solar here in Medina, or in Wadsworth. We're a public power community, as is Seville and Lodi. So we've been taking advantage of community solar fields for years. That is not the case where the electric distribution unit areas are. So we're trying to expand that. Community solar are small field solar that helps alleviate the pressure on the grill and does their most benefit on days just like today. Very hot, just tries to relieve some of the pressure off the grid so we don't ever have to suffer from rolling blackouts, which some of our folks on both coasts are suffering from. And let me tell you, I have heard people talk about them, and they do not sound fun. We do not want to be without power on a 95-plus degree day. Some of the other things I've worked on have to do with providing a daycare services for our foster and kinship caregivers. Right now, we do not provide that, but you know, there are a lot of grandparents that are raising their grandchildren now. The heroin epidemic was not good to us. And for those folks that are trying to make a living, typically off of fixed income because they're retired, child care costs now run anywhere from $175 to $200 plus a week. A week. You know, they need the supports to make sure their kids, they can take care of the children that they're tasked to care for, and also to help promote our foster families and ease the financial burden on them for helping some of these kids that are in the foster care system. But those are some of the things that I have worked on. I'm sure you have lots of questions for me. I hope I have lots of answers. Does anyone have anything they'd like to talk or ask about?
Okay. Sharon, occasionally I substitute teach despite my advanced years. And one of the things I'd like to know is what are you doing about making sure that all those kids have something to eat every day?
Okay, I want to make sure I understand. You said you do some substitute teaching, which I'm sure the kids love to see. And you want to know what we're doing to help the kids, what?
Yeah. Eat food, have something to eat every day, correct?
Food insecurity issues have really risen over the last few years, and I tell you, it really hit home with me. I was volunteering with Feeding Medina County in the food distribution line down at the stadium they do, and I thought I'd see more young families, and I saw more people that looked like us, which was really kind of sobering. But Feeding Medina County has really taken a lead as far as preparing food packages and weekender bags for the kids to take home. Some of the individual school systems even have their own food pantries, where kids can go in during the day without having to check with anyone, without having to say, there's no food in my house. They can go in and get some of the staples they will need so that they have plenty to eat over weekends, over breaks, whatever. But the efforts are going to continue. The efforts are going to continue just to try to ease that burden. And, for anyone who's receiving any kind of a food benefit, you know what inflation has done to your costs. It's horrific. I can't even imagine. I buy for one person, and I can't get out of the grocery store for under $75. I can't even imagine if I was feeding children. So that is something that continues to be on our radar.
So you had mentioned, you were talking about property taxes, and that you were, and you were mentioning that at the end of the year, the legislation or whatever is planning to take a look at property taxes to see what can be done to help the elderly. Any ideas on how they're looking at doing that?
I have reached out to one of the committee members who said, you will see the recommendations when they're done the end of the year. So obviously he doesn't want to share too much before they come out with their formal recommendations, because I wanted to make sure he knew about our countywide school sales tax. A consumption tax to fund some of this, I am a proponent of, because it shouldn't all ride on the backs of the property tax owners. But truthfully, he will not give me a sneak peek. We will get those recommendations at the end of the year, and I think there will be legislation drawn up to look at the possibilities of implementing some of them. Good morning.
I was pleased to hear you mention the community solar. I think that's a good program that needs to be expanded. And as you probably know, the scientists are saying that climate change is not only getting worse, but it's probably accelerating. They don't have the final data yet, but it certainly looks like it. The oceans are getting extremely hot. And I wondered if there is discussion discussion or climate change is used as design or decision criteria in things that are going on in the legislature?
Well, I believe you asked about, you're a proponent of community solar and talked about climate change and the acceleration and why we're pushing for this. And it certainly is something that comes into factor when we have these discussions. One of the other things that people don't even really think about that became prominent on my radar is also from a national security standpoint, which how would solar have any impact on that? Well, if the grid goes down, think about what it's going to look like if we have no power, which means there's going to be no communication, which means there's going to be no emergency services coming out to save you. It can take us down very quickly. I don't know if any of you followed this whole deal with Russia and the Ukraine. One of the things the Russians have been very strategic about doing to the Ukraine is taking their electric grid down, because it just incapacitates the whole system. That's just one ancillary situation that comes up. But, again, we're trying to look at, just like you have a diverse investment portfolio, you want a diverse energy portfolio as well. One of the things that surprised me so much about this when I first got involved is that Ohio really has no energy policy looking forward. And one of the things I've been advocating for very strongly, and we're moving closer to it, is to putting together groups of legislators, senators, economic development folks, and the governor's office to look at coming up with a strategic energy plan moving forward. As we continue to attract these data centers, they are huge power users. Now, some of them are coming in and they're saying, look, I'm going to buy enough additional land so that I can put solar on my land to power my business. Now, that's smart not only from a cost perspective, but also if something goes down and there's a problem, it's theirs, it's right there. So they are already recognizing the importance of doing that, and I think as a state we need to come together and we need to plan for all the possible situations that could arise and make sure we have the power to serve our constituents, the businesses we have now, and the businesses we hope to have.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Privately, we've spoken to you about the Convention of States movement, and you said you're for that, but for the benefit of everybody here, could you explain what the Convention State is and what the status of it is in the state of Ohio legislature?
Well, you're asking about the Convention of States, which we had spoken briefly about, and that is the convention to try to get all these states that have passed this together, if I understand correctly, and look at policy issues, especially relating to federal debt. Now, there was a meeting recently that was held last week. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend because I'm slugging it out with the energy companies over community solar. But from what I understand, there was a couple concerns that were raised about a runaway convention, and I think you and I also talked about that briefly. The attorneys are working on that. I know that they are still moving ahead with that, but I don't know specifically what their path is moving forward. But there is movement on it, and there is interest, and it's picking up support. Okay.
Hi, Sharon. Nice to see you again. Hey, about 1 or 2 years ago, you had some legislation you were involved with animals, right? Did you do something with animal rights or animal adoption?
You are exactly right, Linda. We worked on the pet tax credit for landlords, pet-friendly landlords. Is that what you're?
And how? So I have a two-part question. One,
sure.
How is that going?
Well, that passed out of committee 2 weeks ago. So we are currently working on tightening up some of the, because that is a credit that goes to landlords that allow tenants to have pets, not without charging additional rental money, and also doesn't discriminate against a breed of pet, other than they can discriminate against a vicious dog. We're looking for some final financial figures on that to see if we move forward, but it has passed out of committee. once we get the information we need, I anticipate it'll go to the House floor for a vote.
Okay, and my second part is, I work with a local rescue, and especially in southern Ohio, the sheer amount of running dogs, dumped dogs, it's overwhelming. None of the rescues, the shelters can handle it. We're constantly getting, can you help Licking County? Can you help this county? And, you know, we can't hardly take care of our own counties. Are you hearing anything in the legislature down there about maybe credits if people get animals spayed or neutered, or anything creative coming up? I mean, it's just so depressing to see this day after day, and the sheer number of dogs and cats that are being euthanized like crazy because there's no place for them to go.
Linda, thank you so much for that question. And unfortunately, I'm not really hearing anything as far as increasing. The counties are typically the ones that operate the official animal shelters. And here in Medina County, people much smarter than me 25 years ago made the decision that any animal that was adopted from the Medina County Animal Shelter, there would be a credit that would be given to the folks, the adopters, if they got the animal spayed and neutered. And it's been incredibly successful. We found out when I was a commissioner that I think 70 to 80% of those certificates were executed and used within the first 3 months of adoption. So I think that has done wonders for keeping the population down at the animal shelter in Medina County. And if you want to go take a look at the dogs that are up for adoption, please do. We're always looking for homes for our furry friends. But there's always a very minimal amount of dogs that are available. My personal experience is when I left the commissioner's office in 2010, I was looking for an older, smaller dog. I ended up with a 55-pound, 10-month-old beast that I adopted from the animal shelter. That was my man, Riley. I'm sure you people have heard me refer to him. He was my walking buddy for 13 years. I lost him a couple years ago. I miss him desperately. He was a great companion. And when I talk about that, the interesting thing, we talk about seniors, we talk about the epidemic of loneliness and how much animals provide companionship for folks, especially if those of us that live by ourselves. That's what the pet tax credit is actually about, is so many folks really, they want to get out of their house, they can't afford to maintain their house anymore, but they're not going if they can't take their pet. And for the smaller landlords, this gives them a credit of $500 a unit up to a maximum of $2,500 a year to accept folks that want to bring their pets with them. So we're very hopeful that will help with that. But the animal shelter is a great place to get a friend. And like I said, I really enjoyed my dog Riley and lost him and still miss him. I adopted a cat. I don't recommend it.
Person you mentioned, runaway convention. I'm sorry, could you explain what that is to me?
I apologize. I cannot explain that because that is something the attorneys are all talking about, and I am not an attorney. So there's some provisions in there that there is some discussion trying to tighten them up, but I wouldn't be able to speak to that intelligently on a legal basis. I'm sorry.
I wanted to know how come out of 88 counties in Ohio, only 7, including Medina, has to worry about e-checks.
Well, that would be a great question for our friends at the federal government. We have passed legislation asking to do away with that here in our district for many cycles. I still resent it when I have to go down there and put my car through it.
Well, my car is older, runs good, looks good, but because of it being the catalytic converters, of course, they go away. I mean, they're gone. Mm-hmm. But they made me pay $300 just to get my license plates, because I couldn't have an e-check. And it was nothing. I mean, I had to get a mechanic. We have good mechanics that we always go to, who looked for $300 worth of stuff to do to my car that had nothing to do with catalytic converters. And it was just stuff they update a little bit just to get to this 300. And I don't understand that. I don't know why I should have to pay that.
Well, and I am so sorry. That seems unfair to me as well. Unfortunately, I think back when it was instituted, it probably had a lot of benefits. I don't think that it has the benefits probably the last 20 years, or at least the last 10 years. And the federal government has to terminate the program. We can't do it.
I called Congressman in federal, whatever, I can't remember his name. He said it was up to the states.
Well, we've already we've passed a resolution asking them to terminate it. It's an EPA thing.
I can't believe that our counties are the only ones that are producing this horrible, whatever they think it is. And all these other counties
Don't have to participate at all.
doesn't make sense.
No, I agree with you. Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah. So it's up to the federal? When I called them, they told me it was up to the state. So I'm gonna call the federal again.
Well, thank you for being here. This is a good opportunity. Just a quick follow-up on that last question. If it's a federal mandate, then how are some counties not doing it?
Because when it was set up, it was only set up for certain counties. And that was
It's set up for certain counties?
correct.
Okay.
The EPA is the one that developed the program.
All right, thank you.
I have a question about the taxing system. Explain to me why an attached condo would pay the same amount or more than a single-family dwelling.
That would be a question for our county auditor. For many years, our county auditor was actually a gentleman that Robin and I graduated from high school with, Mike Kovac, if you remember Mike. Now it is a gentleman named Anthony Capretta. They're the ones that make the ratings and determinations on that, and I would not know. Can I give a little shout out to somebody? Am I allowed to do that? This gal here, your granddaughter is about to get a grant that she has lobbied hard for, that I think is very appropriate, for an all-inclusive playground at Valley View School. And when Haley had me come out there and showed me pictures of kids with physical disabilities that had nowhere to go for playground time, she so moved me, and we were able to find a pool of money, and she doesn't know it yet. She'll know it by next week, by the time this airs, that this is going to be included, and it was her passion and her persistence that helped make that a reality, and it will benefit all the kids in Wadsworth that have physical disabilities that go to Valley View. So, congratulations. Yes.
Given the fact that given the fact that the highways are maintained from taxes that are based on gas sales, but more and more people are getting electric cars, and in the long term, for the environment, we want that to happen. Is there any work being done to look at how we tax and maintain our highways in the state?
Any of you have an electric car here? Nope. Did you pay the $500 fee you had to pay to get the electric car? That's what helps offset the gasoline tax. Times two. And that's part of what's making up their lack of gas usage, in an effort to try to make everybody pay their fair share for the maintenance of the roads. So they're constantly looking at different things and how revenues are shifting, and how we can make sure we have enough money to run the government, but not too much. You know what I'm saying?
Any more questions?
Can I make another request for those of you that are able to, if you get a chance, it is so beneficial to volunteer to be a poll worker. We are at a situation now where we have a tough time recruiting enough folks to do it, and you will never find anything, with the possible exception of jury duty, that puts you in a position to watch the whole system play out and give you a good idea of how elections are executed in the state of Ohio. Many of you know I was on the Board of Elections for 5+ years, and I have to tell you, when I was a commissioner, I'd look at their budgets and go, what are they doing over there? They run 2 elections a year. How can it possibly be this expensive? And then I got on the board, and I was schooled. It's a fascinating process. It's really good to see firsthand from just being an American standpoint. If you get a chance, call the Medina County Board of Elections. They're always looking for volunteers. They'd love to have you. Okay. Well, you guys have been a fun group. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's give her a
Thank you
round
very
of
much.
applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was excellent. Great questions from all of you. I want to give you a save the date. This will be announced in our next newsletter, which is about to hit mailboxes. But save the date for Monday, August the 5th at 10 o'clock. We're going to do muffins with the mayor, our very own mayor, so we're super excited about that. So she's going to let us know the latest going on with the City of Wadsworth. There's always so many great and wonderful things, so save the date for that. I also want to do a big plug. You are all invited this Friday at noon. The cafe is celebrating 1 year being operated by the Medina County Office for Older Adults, and they are going to have lunch specials, some favorites. That's at noon this coming Friday, and they will also have cake, and it'll be a really great way to show support for the cafe. So come on out Friday at noon. She announced it. Yes. Okay. Yes, Tammy wanted to make sure everybody knew that the Blue Tip Grand Marshal is going to be Sharon Ray. So enjoy the parade tomorrow. That is going to be awesome, and that kicks off at 6 o'clock right from this campus. And remember, it goes all the way to Isham, so lots of places to find a spot, and bring water with you. It's going to be warm, but it's going to be so much fun. Thank you all for coming to the Soprema Senior Center today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you very much.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.